UCLA needs to absolutely step up their physicality. Can they match the physicality of a Utah team that UCLA has not been up for the challenge in recent years? Let's see and let's talk about it on Locked On UCLA as we start our preview with the Utah Utes as the Bruins in a crucial matchup of Pac-12 play. Let's hit that music, everybody. There we go.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UCLA your first listen each and every day. I'm Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer, your host for Locked On UCLA. It's free wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Odyssey, or wherever you get your podcast is for free. Go to YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Thanks for the support. And just know that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines ever than before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And where UCLA's game starts against Utah, well, it starts with the sheer physicality of it. With that, we're going to get an aggressive 8-clap going, get right to it. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, UCLA. UCLA, fights. Let's go. Let's get up in here. Let's get excited. Already talked about how this is the biggest game, arguably, in Chip Kelly's tenure. Biggest game in a little under a decade, in 8 years. A matchup the Bruins have not beaten the Utah Utes since 2015. Yes, they haven't beaten Utah since 2015 when Josh Rosen was at the helm. They lost in 2016 with Faithful. How you ever say his name? I forgot how you say his name. But he threw for 400 yards. UCLA lost 52-45. And since then, the Bruins have had no success since 2016 through 2021 against Kyle Whittingham's Utah Utes, especially since they've joined the Pac-12. I believe the number was they've been outscored by 27 points in average margin of victory by Utah. They flat out dominated this matchup. There is no doubt about it. Regardless of who is the coach, they've pretty much dominated from the end of Jim Mora's tenure all the way through the beginning and now 5th year of Chip Kelly's tenure. The physicality of this matchup is crucial for UCLA to win this one. We talked about this in episodes previous. You can go back to the episode for Locked On UCLA titled "The Next 3 Games Will Be UCLA's Biggest of the Season." I think the next 3 games will make or break their season. They beat Washington. That was crucial. And now right here is Utah. I teased Washington was the test for the defense. Well, for the most part, the defense answered the test. Some things they need to fix, but the defense answered the bell. And, they answered the call. They rung the bell. They did whatever. Sacks, interceptions, whatever they needed. This Utah matchup is a true test of physicality. True test. Whatever it is, they're going to come and punch you in the mouth. Utah fans have not been particularly happy with their run game. It's still a run game for the Utes that has put up about 150 yards, 160 yards per game on the ground. Last year, the Utes ran for over 290 yards on the Bruins, running it down their throat in a dominant win where Dorian Thompson-Robinson, mind you, did not play in that game in Salt Lake City. And he's only played once against Utah back in 19, I believe. And, it was when he was a youngster. That's when Dorian was still quite a youngster, still getting used to, playing with Chip Kelly's system. And another thing, I saw a nice comment from you guys in the comment section, a nice analogy, how this is truly like those Stanford teams that gave Chip Kelly some trouble when he was at Oregon. The physicality, whatever it is, the stoutness, always give Chip Kelly and those tough Oregon teams trouble. Whatever it was, whatever it is, that's what it is. That's what Utah has been for UCLA in recent years. I know Chip Kelly has been able to beat Stanford, although they've fallen on hard times lately, have the Cardinal. But it's now Utah who has been the team UCLA has struggled with in his entire tenure, even to the end of the Jim Mora era. The physicality is what's going to make or break this game for UCLA. Are they up to the test? They're a little banged up on the D-line, while it's Utah fans and Utah themselves who hasn't been as trusting of their own line, despite the running game being good. They have a nice, calm, cool, collected quarterback in Cam Rising. They've got tight ends. They've got receivers who, they're not big name like Jake Bobo, but they got a nice shifty guy in Jalen Dixon. Tavion Thomas is expected to do big things. Dalton Kincaid, one of two elite tight ends for Utah, although their other one just went out for the season. This is a team that's going to bring a very physical presence to UCLA, and it's going to be up to them both offensively and defensively, physically, to answer the bell. They've got to answer it. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, you can see all the highlights you want, but still, this is a game where it's going to be won up front in the trenches to give Thompson-Robinson, Zach Charbonnet some room, to give DTR some time to throw the ball, to get it to a Jake Bobo if he's open. That's what's the difference in this matchup, against Utah. Dorian Thompson-Robinson has technically faced Utah twice, I'm trying to pull it up, but just twice, I think once, whatever it is. It's not pulling up on the stats. Back in 19, he threw 2 picks, whatever it is. This is a team, UCLA, it's all about just the physicality of the game. UCLA, they had a nice start against Washington, a nice little miniature test against a Washington defensive front that brought the pressure, 15 sacks in 3 games, 8 sacks the week before, and they came into UCLA and DTR only got sacked once, and the Bruins ran over Washington for the most part, and DTR threw for over 300 in the air. Not exactly what's going to happen against Utah, but it very well could. If UCLA can answer the bell physically, then they can very much move the football. Absolutely. I think they can move the football, but they are going to struggle up front. It'll be a long day, and the first time all season that UCLA would have struggled to truly move the football on a consistent basis. You can point to the likes of the South Alabama game. You can point to a couple of drives in Bowling Green, but still UCLA has put up yards and points in all 5 of their games. You can point to opponents, you can point to whatever it may be. UCLA's put up points and yards, and this is a true test of how they can move the football and how they can stop the opponent from running the ball down their throat. We'll get deeper into these red zone numbers I'm about to talk to you in just a moment when we talk about and lead into that physicality point between UCLA and Utah. But let's tell you about our new sponsor. We got a new fun talking point. Our partners at Nissan have worked with us to create a new segment across the Locked On College Network titled "Thrilling Moments," where we can highlight the most exciting play over the weekend or through UCLA, whatever it is. This week's thrilling moment from the UCLA Bruins' recent matchup against the Washington Huskies. Come on, folks. Come on, you know what it is. It's actually 2 plays, but because it was by the same guy, it was the thrilling moments. Dorian Thompson-Robinson hurdling a defender, going 20 billion feet in the air, doing it again on a highlight reel leap in the field of play in full speed over a defender. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was absolutely fantastic, showing his sheer athleticism on the field. We take for granted how much Dorian Thompson-Robinson is absolutely electric on the field. And don't forget that Lamar Jackson-esque slide on the goal line that caused 2 Huskies to just collide into each other. Just that simple. Those are the thrilling moments of the week for the UCLA Bruins football team. And just know that for UCLA football, DTR is the man. He's got those thrilling moments. The leap and the big, little side dive, stop on a dime, make 2 players collide with themselves. This segment has been sponsored by the thrilling new designs featured across Nissan's new lineup of vehicles. Pursue what thrills you in all new Frontier, Armada, or the Pathfinder today. It's available now at NissanUSA.com. All right, now moving forward to continue. What is this physicality? Well, we haven't brought any numbers to it. It's just the physicality. It's talking points, right? No, this is where UCLA physically needs to hold up against both Utah offensively and defensively. We're just going to drive home this point right now fairly quickly. UCLA has allowed 9 touchdowns in the last 11 trips by opponents in the red zone. It's like the last 3 games, whether it be Colorado, whether it be whoever it may be, Washington, and the South Alabama game. Teams who during their drives moved the ball into the 20 have dominated, and some of that when it gets to the red zone, there isn't a lot of wiggle room. A lot of it can come down to mobility, physicality. Can your O line just push the D line back? Can UCLA generate pressure and force a terrible pass, or get those runs and stop them for short yardage? And it's been the Bruins who've been getting gashed in the red zone defensively. 9 touchdowns on the last 11 defensive tries to stop the opponent. And those teams have just been right down the chute, been able to score touchdowns And barring a complete mistake, this is just UCLA. It's been from 20 to 20. They've been a bit of a bend but don't break defense. But as soon as you get in the 20, UCLA has been broken down multiple times. So the physicality of the game is where Utah, they're going to try to run the football. They're going to try to use those RPOs. Try, play action. Cam Rising sticks in the belly of Thomas, comes, looks to pass. He can take off too. It's the physicality that UCLA needs to instill defensively deep in the red zone. Red zone efficiency, while this isn't a keys to the game episode specifically, will be one of the keys to UCLA winning the game. That's what they got to do. Physically win the game. It's not when Utah is on their own 25 or own 20. Yes, you can win battles, but a lot of physical football is played in the 20s, in the 20 offensively and in the 20 defensively. You think about it, Utah, they ran it down UCLA's throats last year. Thomas was amazing. They just make UCLA look silly, time in and time out. But has UCLA grown physically as a program? Like they're going to face a lot in those Big Ten games coming up, unless they have a big change of, just a changing of the guard offensively with those games. But those are big physical teams in the future UCLA is going to see. This is Utah kind of a test not only for now, but building towards the future where if UCLA is going to have success, they need to get physically dominant. You can move the ball, you can score points. Yes, Chip Kelly was an innovator, but now everybody can move the ball quickly and score points. You have to be able to do it while being physically gifted, fast, skillful, and just flat out spectacular. That's what you got to do. Defensively, can the Bruins be physical, force tackles for losses, get those QB sacks, whatever it may be, in the likes of simply being physically present in this game? Are they going to get pushed around, or can they stand their ground? That front seven, can they hold up during in the 20s? When Utah eventually at some point will move the ball inside the UCLA 20, hold them to field goals, hold them to 0 points, maybe force a turnover. However it happens, that's what UCLA needs to do defensively. Offensively, back to this red zone point that we're still harping on right now. On their last 18 red zone trips, UCLA has 11 touchdowns. And considering they just played Colorado and then played South Alabama before that, and then, Washington, they were doing different things. But it was surprising that UCLA was not able, especially early in that Washington game. They had it like first and goal at the 5 and couldn't get any points out of it. Chip Kelly goes for it, yes, once. And then I believe, the other time late, edge of the red zone at the end of the second quarter, when UCLA couldn't get a 4th and 1 at the end of the first half against the Huskies, when they didn't want to just run the ball down their throats, first and goal at the 5 against Washington, and UCLA is not going to be able to have that type of inferior O-line presence against Utah and expect to win the game. That's just not what's going to happen. They have a little bit of some young D-line. You'll see it when we have the crossover episode that I talked with JT Wistrassil. That's going to come up on crossover Thursday as well for Locked On UCLA and Locked On Utes coming up. He teases that a lot as well. As a little preview there. But it is, can UCLA be physically dominant inside the 20 offensively? Part of the problem is we've seen DTR and Zach Charbonnet, they've been moving the football, but there's been some key times on 3rd and short, 4th and short, where it's been because of the extra effort of DTR or Charbonnet making an athletic play. It was DTR who made the play 3rd and short that almost sealed the game against Washington. Read option, he read it and outran the defender to the corner on the QB keeper outside left. Normally, in a simple, dominant O-line, you hand it to Charbonnet, you're getting 5 yards on 4th and 1, or at least the 2 yards, the yard you need. And on 4th and 1, when they stacked the box to the Huskies, UCLA got stopped. Utah's a very physical front. They're going to be dominant. They were able to hold Oregon State. They were dominant in the red zone defensively, were the Utes last week against Oregon State, who is a very physical team. They took it to Fresno State, running over somebody to win a game. They were physically dominant against USC and very well could have and should have and very nearly beat the Trojans out in Corvallis. And then they went to Utah, and despite the scoreline, it was maybe a little closer than it looked, but Utah flat out physically dominated at the end. And when they forced Oregon State to throw the football, turned into turnovers. If UCLA is not going to be physically present offensively, there's limited windows in the 20 and within the 20 when you're in the red zone. And DTR is going to have to be able to fit the ball into tight windows. That's the key And how many times do you want to be forced to throw against a Utah team that has been turning teams over consistently in their first few games? It's tough. It is tough. But in the meantime, let's tell you about BetOnline, and we can tell you about more, UCLA, the underdogs, whatever it may be. It is what it is. BetOnline is your number one source for football betting information this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. Just know that BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information, live betting, up-to-the-minute scores for every sport, just like events with Major League Baseball. The postseason's coming up, MMA, always big fights, boxing, big fights, and golf. Well, there's always drama with golf. Head to BetOnline right now or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, as we begin to wrap up Locked On UCLA, we'll have our full prediction episode, kind of more detailing how I think the game will go as a whole. I feel like I've been pretty accurate so far this season. I could be wrong. You guys could judge me. It is what it is. I can take some criticism if it's fairly justified. But in all jokes aside, just know that the crossover episode's coming up soon, and for Locked On UCLA predictions. We'll have a Throwback Thursday, a little hidden gem there as well. All expected for exciting episodes. But in the meantime, let's wrap up this. What happened last time UCLA was able to beat the likes of Utah in 2015? What was very different about the what happened? What was the difference between UCLA then and Utah then? It was back in 2015. We'll go over who the quarterbacks were. Whatever it was back in 2015. UCLA also started that season 4-0, if you remember. Kind of similar start before losing to Arizona State and Stanford. A similar type start to this season when they beat Virginia. That was Rosen's freshman year, and UCLA went to Utah in Salt Lake City and won a 17-9 game. What was so crucial about that game for UCLA, which they won a slightly tight one against the Utes? Well, UCLA was able to handle the physicality, not turn it over, and do just enough to beat them. They outgained the Utes. They did what they needed to do. They were converting on third down. They were 8 of 16, and for the most part, they did just enough. It was an ugly game back in 2015, November 21st. UCLA knocking off a top 20 Utah team, 17-9. Yes, 17-9. That was way back when they beat the Utes, when Josh Rosen was the quarterback, the youngster, and they didn't really do much, but they did just enough. Doing just enough is not going to do enough to win the game against Utah. You can't do just enough. This is a team that has high expectations. The Bruins want the Rose Bowl. Utah has been wanting, they went to the Rose Bowl last year. They want to make it into the CFP, College Football Playoff. And UCLA, with their trajectory and the schedule they still have in front of them, all the jokes about the non-conference schedule, UCLA can still make the College Football Playoff. Yes, I said that quietly. Let's say it loud. UCLA can make the College Football Playoff. We're not trying to go crazy with expectations here. Both teams having similar expectations with what they've done and what they have in front of them in terms of their scheduling. But expecting the bare minimum to work against Utah this week will not happen. Utah's a favorite for a reason against UCLA. And can they use that underdog mentality? And can DTR use that fire going forward in a home game? It's only going to get harder at Oregon in 2 weeks. In a home game, to find a way to earn a victory against a Utah team that's arguably a top 10 team already, top 11 technically at the moment based on polls before they get the CFP. But this will be an interesting matchup. I can't wait to see it. It's fascinating, and it's a true test of UCLA's physicality against a Utah team that can almost represent Stanford's physicality in the Pac-12 South Division. With the kind of how the divisions used to be Pac-12, whatever it is, how they do the schedules, but they represent the physicality of the South. If not, they've taken it over from Stanford. Can UCLA find a way to knock off this team they have not beaten since 2015? That's just simple. If they win this game, my goodness, UCLA, even if they lose this game, still high expectations going forward for the Bruins. Still high expectations. They still have games to play, but this is one where it's a measuring stick. How good are you going to be against those Big Ten teams? Where do you have to get going forward? Where they'll be big up front. Maybe not exciting in Iowa, but you have to be able to be ready. Whoever Wisconsin hires as their new head coach, whatever, Ohio State, the Michigans may bring when you want to ridicule the Wolverines for canceling the home and home. Whatever it is, UCLA's got to be ready to answer the bell and be ready, be ready, be ready, and shock everybody. Predictions coming up later in the week. We've got our crossover episode with Locked On Utes. That is on the Thursday. That is on October 6th. Be excited for that. I'm with Locked On Utes host JT Wistrasil. It'll be a nice kind of back and forth conversation of what Utah's expecting, what UCLA needs to do, and will be some more keys to the game going forward for the Bruins. And a nice matchup between both mobile quarterbacks, both teams with solid running backs that can run the football. UCLA a little bit better going forward. And then at the end of the week, we'll do keys to the game. I'll throw in a shortened edition of Throwback Thursday, and I hope you guys like it. In the meantime, this has been Locked On UCLA. Again, you can follow me at Zach and Yox on Twitter. You can go follow the show Twitter at Locked On Bruins. Go make Locked On Pac-12 your second listen of the day with Spencer McLaughlin. He does a great job just covering the entire conference, including the conference's biggest matchup of the weekend, UCLA and Utah. Two top 20 teams battling it out in the middle of the day at the Rose Bowl, 12:30 Pacific time. Excited about it. I hope you are. But in the meantime, get those hands in the air, Bruin fans. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. Let's go. This has been Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins.